How could Fujifilm possibly follow its X-T3, the best APS-C mirrorless camera on the market? When it came out 2 years ago, it was shockingly good for both video and photos. Fujifilm's answer is the X-T4, a big evolution in its flagship X-T series. It has the same sensor as before, but delivers much needed upgrades, like a flip-out screen, improved autofocus, and in-body stabilization. The X-T4 has killer specs, but it's very expensive, and the competition has advanced since the X-T3. It now competes against the Sony a6600's killer autofocus and Canon's blazingly fast EOS M6 Mark II. Can it still vanquish them all? I took it for a countryside spin to find out. The stylish and relatively lightweight body was a strong selling point of the X-T3. Well, the X-T4 is still great looking, but it's not quite as svelte. It's heavier by about 2.5 ounces and just a hair thicker. That's down to the new in-body stabilization system, articulating screen, and larger battery. The X-T4 is still nimble enough to take most places though, and the flip-out screen and IBS are worth the trade-off. However, it's no longer what I'd call compact like the X-T3 or even the a6600. The X-T3 was already the best handling APS-C camera out there, and the X-T4 takes that up another notch. I love how this camera feels. At the same time, the touchscreen does more too. Fujifilm has updated the quick setting menu with film simulation and other settings, so I rarely needed to dive into the main menus. And when I did, those were easier to use than nearly on any other mirrorless camera. While we're on the display, Fujifilm finally gave the X-T series a fully articulating screen. That makes it more useful as a vlogging camera than the X-T3, especially with the in-body stabilization that will smooth out your movements. It also helped me do street photography more discreetly. The X-T4 body ticks other boxes too. It has a bigger battery than the last model that let me shoot photos all day and video for about 2 hours straight. Like the X-T3, it has dual high-speed SD card slots for backup and faster shooting. Finally, you get HDMI, USB-C, and microphone ports, but unlike the X-T3, Fujifilm has inexplicably removed the headphone port. That's not quite as tragic as it sounds, as I could still monitor sound with a USB-C port using an adapter or USB earphones. So the X-T4 still roundly beats the competition, especially Sony, when it comes to handling and looks. But what about performance? Fuji's new low vibration shutter makes it both quicker and quieter than ever. In fact, this camera may have the best feeling and sounding shutter of any camera I've ever tried. The X-T3 shoots at a respectable 12 frames per second, but the X-T4 can do a breakneck 15 frames per second with the mechanical shutter. That beats Canon's M6 II, the former champ, and the X-T4 can do it for 38 consecutive RAW frames compared to 23 for its rival. Speed is nothing if the autofocus can't keep up. While the X-T3 wasn't bad in this category, it couldn't touch Sony's a6600 when it came to AF speed, especially for subject tracking. Luckily, Fujifilm made some improvements here too. For continuous autofocus, the X-T4 uses a single box instead of multiple squares like before, so it's more obvious when you're tracking. The AF works better than on the X-T3 for sports and other types of dynamic shooting. It's less jerky and locks onto your subject more reliably. Face and eye detection is also smoother and more accurate. However, in tricky sports and other scenarios, it did miss some shots. It's a big improvement over the X-T3, but the focus hit rate still isn't as high as Sony's a6600. That's a high bar though, and the X-T4 autofocus excels in most situations. The X-T4 is only the second Fujifilm camera in this class with in-body stabilization after the X-H1. The X-T4 is much smaller, but Fujifilm promises that the IBS actually works better. I don't have the hands of a surgeon, but I could still get sharp photos down to about 1/5 or 1/8 of a second. That makes this camera much more useful for low light shooting than the X-T3. As for image quality in low light and other situations, the X-T4 excels. There was no need for Fuji to change the excellent 26.2 megapixel X-Trans sensor, which is second only to Canon's M6 II in APS-C resolution. image quality is generally unchanged from the X-T3, with a few exceptions. The X-T4 is among the best for color rendition. Everything looks natural here, whether you're shooting landscapes, animals, or people. JPEGs look good straight out of the camera, although Sony does do a better job controlling noise without losing detail. For high ISO shooting, I found I could get usable shots at up to ISO 12,800. Coupled with the highly effective in-body stabilization, that makes the X-T4 very useful for concerts, soirees, and other low-light situations. Like the GH5S and other cameras these days, the X-T4 uses a dual-gain sensor design. That helps reduce noise, especially in shadows, so you can really boost the dark areas of RAW images in Lightroom. To get even more dynamic range, the X-T4 offers the same multi-shot HDR mode that Fujifilm introduced on the X Pro 3. That mode rapidly takes, aligns, and merges 3 RAW images to preserve extra detail in highlight and shadow areas. As ever, you get a range of very useful JPEG film simulations like Velvia Black and White Acros and Desaturated Eterna. With the X-T4, Fujifilm introduced the Eterna bleach bypass filter, giving you the contrasty, desaturated look of films like Fight Club. Should you wish to shoot your own films, the X-T4 again excels in the video realm. As before, you can shoot 4K video at up to 60 frames per second, with 1080p now possible at a time-stopping 240 frames per second. With 10-bit internal and external recording, you can shoot video with a more dynamic range than Sony or Canon's APS-C cameras. The X-T4 still has F-Log to boost dynamic range. However, Fujifilm has now introduced a log assist function that will make it easier to see details and judge exposure than with the X-T3. Video quality is sharp, vibrant, and nearly free from aliasing and other artifacts. Rolling shutter or jello effect is well controlled. As before, the X-T4 is still excellent for doing video, but now it's a much better vlogging camera. That's because it has in-body stabilization mainly, but also because the autofocus is now much improved. So you're more likely to get sharper shots. You can focus more quickly and change from focus from subject to subject. The flip-out screen also makes this a great option for one-man band videographers or for vloggers in particular. The best part is that it flips out to the side now, so that it doesn't get blocked either by your tripod or by the microphone. Is the X-T4 a worthwhile upgrade over its excellent predecessor? Heck yes! Sure, it has the same sensor as before, but the new model addresses everything I didn't like about the X-T3. I called out the lack of a flip-around screen, in-body stabilization, and middling autofocus. Fujifilm fixed all those things. It also added features I didn't complain about, like faster shooting speeds and the log assist function. The X-T4 is a superior camera to Sony's A6600 in every way except the autofocus. The only thing making it a hard sell is the $1,700 price tag. That's far more than the $1,200 A6600 or $1,100 M6 II with an EVF. For that kind of money, you could easily go full frame and get Sony's A7 III. However, I think the X-T4 handles better than even the A7 III and has superior video capabilities too. If you've got the budget and want the best APS-C mirrorless camera on the market, then I'd highly recommend Fujifilm's X-T4. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe. And for more on cameras, check out Engadget.com.